Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. The FBI is currently lacking a permanent director after President Trump fired James Comey this week. Meanwhile, the administration is weighing its options in the fight against ISIS abroad. And what about the lingering threat of a nuclear North Korea? How should the U.S. navigate these national security and foreign policy minefields? Here tonight with analysis, his Deputy Assistant to the President, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Welcome back.
Great to be back.
Great to see you. I want to start with the story that's dominating every headline on every network. President Trump fires James Comey. The narrative coming from so many areas of the media, they're saying he did it because Comey was getting too close to this Russian investigation, exploring collusion between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. Your thoughts?
My thoughts, number one, that narrative is absurd, and it's another example of not just fake news, but very fake news. The fact is, if there was any administration that had unhealthy ties to Moscow, it was the Obama-Clinton administration. Just Google uranium deal and Hillary Clinton. Look at the hot mic incident when President Obama said, I will tell Vlad I will be much more flexible after the election. That's very disturbing. In the last 9 months, what proof has there been? Not one scintilla of connections to Russia of any negative nature with the Trump administration or the Trump campaign. So no, Director Comey was fired because not only had he lost the confidence of the president, who is his superior, but he'd also lost the confidence of many people on the Hill, you know that, and also the rank and file agents.
The president sat with Lester Holt, and this clip has been played in the last few hours as if it's a smoking gun. Watch.
Did you call him?
In one case I called him, in one case he called me.
And did you ask, am I under investigation?
I actually asked him, yes. I said, if it's possible, would you let me know, am I under investigation? He said, you are not under investigation.
Is there a problem here? Some are saying this is Nixonian, the president using his power to bully the FBI director to tell him whether he's under investigation and quietly intimidating him from continuing a deep investigation into the president.
Absurd. I mean, truly, absolutely absurd. Is this how lazy the media has become, that anything a president they don't like does has to be labeled as Nixonian? Remember, this is a director of the FBI who, during the Clinton investigations, was fine with giving immunity to numerous individuals under investigation, who was fine with the laptops being destroyed, which were key to that actual investigation, and who said, totally incorrectly, that he found no intent, therefore he's not going to recommend prosecution. One of the rare instances in U.S. law where intent is irrelevant is the question of handling of classified information. If you accidentally don't handle it correctly, you've committed a felony. The director of the FBI usurped the power of the Attorney General when he made that statement, and that's why he had to go.
Why was the president so slow to get rid of James Comey? He knew of this when he took office in January.
He's a reasonable man. He's a reasonable man, and he wanted to see if it was salvageable. But after what happened just a few days ago with Director Comey's testimony, which had to be backtracked, corrected, and backpedaled by his superiors, it was obvious we couldn't wait any longer.
I want to move on to foreign policy, your area of expertise and the area that you help President Trump with. We are arming the Syrian Kurds in the fight against ISIS. This is vaguely reminiscent of things we talked about on this program a few months ago. The arming of Syrian rebels. And that didn't exactly go as planned. What confidence do you have that arming these Syrian Kurds will help matters?
Well, the fact is, it's not a silver bullet, but if you look at the last 6 years, the Kurds have carved out for themselves a reputation of being some of the most dedicated and capable fighters in the region who wish to push back through the use of force against those who wish to see the establishment of theocratic, proto-caliphate-like regimes. So it's not a solution. It's not something that will by itself get us peace, but the president is committed. We have to stop the conflict. And if there are people who are prepared to take the fight to the extremists, then they de facto must be supported.
Now, Turkey is none too happy about the bulking up of the Kurds and the arming of the Kurds. The president is meeting with the president of Turkey next week. Your thoughts on how this might impact that relationship and that meeting?
I don't want to second guess what's going to happen with any meeting between Ankara and Washington. But I think if you just look at recent events inside Turkey, Ankara has had an issue with Kurdish independence, Kurdish movements. But what have they seen in the last 18 months? They've seen ISIS take the fight to Turkey. In fact, one of the recent issues of Dabik, the English language ISIS magazine, on its cover said, we're going to take back Istanbul. So the Turkish Islam, if you will, of Anatolia, of Ankara, of Istanbul, is also anathema to ISIS. So maybe that gives us room for Ankara to reassess who it's going to work with in the future, because we have to stop the bloodshed.
Yeah, I know we all are talking, and we have been for months, about ISIS. We've forgotten, it seems to me, at least in the media, we're not talking about Al-Qaeda, we're not talking about the Taliban. They are still ascendant. Why have we sort of dropped the attention on them, and are we as a government missing this important part of the whole terrorist experiment moving through the Middle East?
If you look at the recent statements made by the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, if you look at the statements made by the field commander, Mick Nicholson, in Afghanistan, no, not at all. We're finally bringing the requisite attention back, because you're absolutely right. In Africa and in Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda has made hay while the sun shined, whilst the last administration was obsessing on ISIS. But the fact is, it's very disturbing. They have grown, and not only that, you've seen the Taliban reconnect its allegiances to these more global organizations like Al-Qaeda, but we're finally taking them seriously.
Well, as you bring that up, General Nicholson, the top commander in Afghanistan, recently said the Taliban is being armed by Moscow. Do you believe that?
If he says it, I'm not going to second guess him. He's on the ground. Always listen. Like Teddy Roosevelt said, it is the man in the arena. So you listen to the man in the arena. But the fact is, we've seen numerous nations have satrapies, have client states. This president has sent a very clear message. The Moab bomb isn't just about Afghanistan. The 59 cruise missiles in Syria aren't just about Syria. He has made a red line, a real red line, and now he's sent a message. Those who have client states need to analyze their internal red lines and just how far they're going to support bad actors.
Sebastian, you have long been writing about this war with jihad, how to take it on. I was at the White House last week. I know you were there as well. We saw each other. When the president signed this religious freedom executive order, where he announced in his first foreign trip, he will be going to the Vatican, Israel, and Saudi Arabia to touch the centerpieces of the three major monotheistic religions. Now, why Saudi Arabia? What does he plan to do there? And how will this defeat jihad?
Again, even with my friends, I have to tell them, this is a White House that doesn't give its playbook away. Unlike the Obama administration, we don't show our cards to the people sitting at the poker table. But I think everybody understands we're stepping beyond the so-called sophisticated, postmodern, secular attitudes of the last 20, 30 years. And we're going to look at the world as it is and say, look, religion is immensely important for billions of people. And that's why these three countries, and that's why right now, as the first trip of the president, we're going to respect the role of religion in people's lives, but at the same time, listen to the speech of the joint session of Congress. We're going to understand the power of religion, not just for good, but also for evil. And we have to challenge those who exploit religion for their own purposes. No more jobs for jihadis. We're going to tackle the subject at its source.
Saudi Arabia is home to Wahhabism. This is one of the most virulent strains of Islam that really has produced so many of the fighters that have come here to our own shores, meaning harm to our own people and people in Europe. How is engaging Saudi Arabia, where Wahhabism is nourished, going to help matters?
It's not something that is happening in a homogenous fashion. So to write off a whole country and say they're part of the problem, I don't think is fair. Why? Because Saudi Arabia has suffered itself since 2004, when Al-Qaeda, when the real hardcore Wahhabists and Takfiri jihadis came back to kill Saudis in Saudi Arabia. So just as Russia, just as China has to reassess its internal red lines, I think Saudi Arabia is thinking twice about just who do we want to be friends with and how deep is that friendship going to be. And remember, who is President Donald Trump? He's the master of the deal.
The new president of South Korea, I want to jump across the ocean, Moon Jae-in, has suggested that the way to engage North Korea is in diplomatic talks. What we need is dialogue, a smart approach.
At the end of the day, there are very few problems of significance that can only be solved by kinetic things, by the use of force. Clausewitz said it 250 years ago. War is the continuation of politics by other means. So you have to have that political end state in mind. This president understands that you use all the levers of power at the same time. It's diplomacy backed up by the use of force if necessary.
We get people to the table.
We saw that in Syria. We saw that with regards to Afghanistan. But at the end of the day, talking is not a bad thing, but you've got to have realistic expectations, and this president does.
Before I let you go, a new cybersecurity executive order signed this week. What does it do? Why do we need it now?
Because cyber has become one of the new dimensions of warfare. It's not just about the physical, it's not just about the intelligence, it really is about this new domain of activity. And the fact is we have to take it seriously because there are nation-state actors and non-nation-state actors who are exploiting the cyber domain to hurt us and our friends, and this executive order is going to help us take that more seriously.
Sebastian Gorka, before I release you totally, there were so many reports in the last few weeks, and I have to tell you, it surprised me a bit. They were publishing your political obituary. Sebastian Gorka is out. He's gone. He's on his way out any day now. What happened?
I tell everybody, in the last 15 weeks, I've come to understand about 80 to 90% of what they write about the White House is just absolutely fallacious. So yet again, very fake news.
No, glad to see you still standing.
Great
Sebastian
to see you.
Gorka, thank you for being here.